want to get back to Dell earnings because they were definitely a miss here on the revenue line, beat on the EPS, but investor disappointment here in the after hours. Jules, let's bring you in.
Well, the company did come out with earnings that rose and that beat expectations, but on sales, we're really seeing this sort of earnings sales dichotomy when it comes to Dell. So on the one hand, earnings in the quarter that was just reported beat estimates, and the company raised its earnings forecast for the full year. But sales in the most recent quarter missed, and the company is cutting its sales forecast for the year, now saying that revenue will grow by 1 to 5%. The previous range was 5 to 9%, so a pretty sizable cut here. Dell is blaming this on strategic decisions to redirect resources from lower to higher value solutions, also a more uncertain demand environment. That's what's behind this cut to the sales forecast. You can see the shares taking a pretty sizable hit in the after-hour session, down by about 5% in reaction to that revenue forecast, Carol.
Julie, thank you so much. We're going to bring in a guest right now for more on Dell. That's Aaron Rakers. He's an analyst over at Stifel Nicolaus. So, Aaron, investors not liking this report. Do you like it from Dell?
Well, I think you got to understand where the Dell story, and where the investor focus is. And I still think this is largely a margin story. So 23.2% gross margin was clearly better than what we were expecting, as well as the street. And as your prior commentary suggested, they're also raising their full-year earnings guidance. So I think it's important to remember that from a top-line perspective, I think we've got to figure out where they're exactly cutting away from lower margin business for the sake of higher margin opportunities, and also to remember that the street expectation out there was only calling for roughly 4% top-line growth versus they're now guided 1 to 5%. So the street was clearly not reflective of that 5 to 9% to begin with.
Aaron, do you think, will management have a chance to explain to shareholders if what they really are doing is trying to redirect to higher margin activities? Why boost revenue in a segment where you're not really making any money, right?
Well, I think that that's exactly right, and that's the message that we definitely heard laid out at the analyst day back in June from the company. You've got 30% of your business that is in enterprise solutions, server storage, networking. They've been making acquisitions in those areas, and those are much more profitable parts of the Dell story versus your client or PC business. So I think this is going to be a continuation of what we heard at the analyst day about how this company wants to really drive a mix shift in our overall business model.
What about the hot buzzword areas? Mobile, right? Tablet. How's Dell doing in that area?
Yeah, I think it remains to be seen. I think tablets isn't a big part of the Dell discussion, much more differently than what it is at HP. And I think that's partly because that Dell is more of a commercial-driven entity and really trying to mix shift more into the data center itself than necessarily at the hand device level.
Hey, Aaron, it's Julie here. So Dell attempting this mix shift here. Is it just a question on the PC side of riding things out? Or is it really vital that it has to shift away from that business because it's not going to fully recover because it's more of a grander shift, if you will, away from PCs and to other types of mobile devices? Yeah,
I think you've got a company that's done a lot of work in the supply chain and go-to-market strategy and rationalizing their overall product portfolio around the PC industry over the last couple of several quarters. And I think as we move forward, I think that low-hanging fruit's behind us, and now mix shift is really going to be the next big phase for the company as far as driving profitable bottom-line growth.
All right, thanks so much for joining us. Aaron Rakers there from Stifel Nicolaus talking about Dell and the cut on its revenue forecast.